Welcome to the Fourth Branch program. Glad you can make it. I am MD. This program is dedicated exclusively for those with common sense, a spirit of patriotism, and a determination for a more perfect union. Stay tuned as we begin the discussion of a very important, interesting, and enlightening topic. Hope to hear from you soon. Happy listening. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who is the 32nd President of the United States, said, "We must especially beware of that small group of men who would clip the wings of the American eagle in order to feather their own nest." Ignorance is the biggest threat to any democracy. It is, however, the ignorance of the ignorance which represent the greatest danger to a society. It is what turns an ignorant man into a lunatic. Thus lies the danger, the peril even of a man, a community, a state, a country, yes, even a society. John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, said that the ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of us all. Indeed, it does. We've seen it, haven't we? We've witnessed it. We are all living it today, are we not? All men are born ignorant. Many have chosen to stay and live in ignorance, but only a few recognize that the ignorance is indeed the root of all evil and have made the choice to be ignorant no more. Hello everyone, I'm MD, and this is the Fourth Branch program. First, a warning. This program is not suitable for all audiences. I repeat, the content of this program is not for everyone. To find out if it's suitable to you, answer the following two questions. First, would you entrust your teenage daughter to a known rapist? Question number two, would you have a known pedophile cared for your toddler? Once again, would you entrust your teenage daughter to a known rapist? And question two, would you have a known pedophile cared for your toddler? if you had difficulty answering either question, this program is not for you. If you answer yes to either or to both questions, this program is definitely not for you. But if both of your answers are absolutely not, this program is catered exclusively to you. You should stick around. It is enlightening, educational, and informative. Hello everyone, I am MD and this is the Fourth Branch Project, the first and only program which is dedicated exclusively to those with common sense, a spirit of patriotism, and a determination for a more perfect union. The Fourth Branch Project seeks to emphasize country over party. Its primary objective is to restore interest in civic duty and involvement in social, political issues, discussion, debate, which might impact lives in this generation and quite possibly in future ones. Put differently, the Fourth Branch Project is a journey towards restoring America's greatness, where patriotism is the foundation of every decision, every policy, every word, every action. Said differently, it is a journey to save democracy in America. Stay with us. We will be right back. Today, after a brutal midterm elections, we continue with our program, the benefits, the tax cut, the benefits cut, and all the other cuts that are been part of the conversation as far as taking care of the national debt. We will address this topic as we started a week prior to the midterm election. It is important that we debate the intricacies, the complexities of that particular topic, because at this point it seems mostly that complex topics are usually presented to the American people in sound bites. Here on the Fourth Branch, we do not have any political affiliation. The main objective is to provide information so there is, at the very least, decision can be made based on accurate information, not political affiliation, not sound bites, but rather wisely. But before we delve into that, we need to address a small part of what we consider administration, although it is not necessarily part of the discussion of the topic, it is considered a basis for it. So we'll delve into it and address it now. You see, Republicans are in love with labels. And we're not talking about just any kind of label either. No, sorry. Republicans are in love with labels which carry favorable implications, such as Christian conservative, Christian, fiscally conservative, and so on. In fact, you would say that most Republicans try to go out of their way to make certain in any conversation labels are used. But unfortunately, it is really the extent to which most, emphasis on most, Republicans are associated with the meaning or even the implication of the word or the expression. The pride Republicans express to say or to hear the use of those expressions by others is almost palpable. There is even an air of superiority vis-a-vis the Democrats, the liberals, as Republicans like to emphasize. Republicans believe the use of those labels makes them somehow superior to the Democrats. That's why they love using it. They love hearing it. Ironically, Democrats and all others are very inclined to use those words, those expressions as well, to refer to Republicans. In fact, the emphasis they usually put on the word liberal is to bring attention to some, well, imaginary negative implication the word liberal carries. I said imaginary because, well, the word liberal is not a negative word. Well, then again, it depends on whom you're talking to. But sadly, Republicans are absolutely wrong to believe liberals imply something negative, and extremely wrong to believe the labels they love so much apply to them in any way, shape, or form. To make a point, we will continue our conversation of the welfare system, and all the while invoking the Republicans' lifestyle and ideology to prove how distant their lives, their actions are from the meaning of the words and the expression they so love to use, they so love to hear. I must add that's really the main reason I simply refer to Republican as Republicans, to Democrat as Democrats. I do not use any other expression or word to refer to members of those parties, because my own observation, my own analysis prove that Republicans are just that, Republicans. There is no Christian conservative, no Christian or no fiscally conservative. It is just that, Republicans. In 1996, a small network by the name of Fox News was launched with just 17 million viewers. Today, with over 100 million people watching regularly, Fox has become the greatest threat to our democracy, constantly bombarding the airwaves with false information, distortion of facts, and outright lies, presenting to its audience as news. Fox has created an army of blissful ignorance. According to a recent survey, 82% of Fox viewers are ignorant of facts and the truth. To keep millions of people in ignorance not only prevents democracy from flourishing, but it also clears the path to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Let me finish by saying that democracy cannot survive in an environment where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Indeed, democracy in America is in jeopardy. It is a crisis the country can no longer ignore. Let me begin by quoting a passage in the Bible, a passage that, well, those Republicans who believe they are Christian should either be familiar with or, well, should definitely be familiar with, because you cannot possibly be a Christian and not become familiar with the Bible at the very least. In any case, in Matthew 25, here's how Jesus started a conversation in relation to those who would be accepted or not accepted in his kingdom. He said, "For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." And of course, the righteous would answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?" And the Lord will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." Now, I use this passage for a very simple reason. We are talking about the welfare system, and we are talking about the benefit cut. We are talking about the tax cut for the rich and the benefit cuts for the people at the lower class, the people who are struggling financially. And it is important to bring it up because Republicans, as I pointed at the very beginning of this conversation, like to think of themselves as Christian. They like to think they conservative. They have a higher level of morality than the liberals and the Democrats. But this comparison that Republicans always take to show that they are more decent people, they have a higher level of morality, therefore they are morally superior to those damn liberals. Some Republicans even call Democrats libtards. And yet, whenever it becomes necessary to take action, to do something that would prove or that would jive with that Christianity of that higher level of morality, it becomes clear as day that Christianity is very far from being part of Republicans' life. This is not a speculation or an assumption on my part. I intend to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt that yes, Republicans love label. They like the idea of being called Christian. They like the idea of being called Christian conservative. But that's where everything stopped, at the idea of being labeled, but not living the lives of those who are Christians or living the lives of those who are Christian conservative. So, in fact, a couple of years ago, I wrote a number of articles where I clearly pointed out the hypocrisy in the Republican Party in terms of either they not really in tune with how they live, they completely oblivious of how they live their lives, or they completely disingenuous, and just as the President of the United States, and at the very least they lie to themselves in terms of who they are, what they are. As I just read to you, one of the basic principles of Christian life is to be able to lend a hand to those who are least fortunate. That's really the basic principle of Christianity. You cannot love, you cannot claim that you have love in your heart. You cannot claim that you are a Christian and at the same time, everything that you do clearly show that you have nothing Christian about your lives. And that doesn't, in fact, it is more pronounced in the Republican circle in Washington than I would say among the constituent. Now, whenever you have an individual who wants to run for public office and they quoting the constituent, so they like to associate themselves with Christian, with those who go to church. Let's just put it that way, those who go to church, they like to associate themselves as such so that they can get the vote of those individuals. But whether it's the people in Washington or those who go to church, beyond the word, they're not living any Christian life. Now, I'm going to use the tax cut that the Republican legislators in Washington just passed to make the point, and no matter how much they can spin it around, there is no way that they can prove that is a Christian action that they took. Now, granted, I must admit that 60% of the majority of the people in the country oppose the idea of the $1.5 trillion tax cut. The majority of the people oppose that. But the fact remains, those individuals, take any of those individuals in Washington who are Republican, they like to associate themselves with Christianity, and every time they go to churches to try to get the support of individuals who go to church, because they saying, well, you see, we are one of you. Now, I have already determined that whether it's in Washington or a church, none of those individuals who love the idea of being called Christian or Christian conservative, they do not the only thing that nobody can extract or rip from them is the fact that they call themselves Christian or Christian conservative. But as I mentioned earlier, I refer to Republican as Republican, to Democrat as Democrat, and I never, up to this point, met with a Republican and watching how they act, how they talk, the way that they behave towards others, and say, well, that individual is actually a Christian. In order to be a Christian, you cannot just want to be called a Christian and not live the life of a Christian. You can call yourself whatever you want, but I would not, in general, call Republican Christian or Christian conservative, because I have enough proof in front of me, they, on a daily basis, that clearly explain to me that they're no Christian. Now, I said all that, not because I want to preach the gospel, but I want to make a very specific point. In February of 2017, the Republican Party, both houses, overwhelmingly supported a $1.5 trillion tax cut. Now, I'm not going to go through a conversation I already went through in terms of that, because we've already talked about Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and you can find those tapes on the People Branch YouTube channel. And at the end of this program, we will again provide you with the information for you to take a look. We've already debated those items in very great detail, so we're not going to talk about them today. But we want to bring your attention to the fact that this conversation we're having is not the first one. In fact, I would say this is probably tape number 5 or number 6. And you will find about this conversation, or you will find it under the entitlement fight, or the fight to the entitlement, something to that effect, on the People Branch YouTube channel. Now, Republicans overwhelmingly passed a $1.5 trillion tax cut. Most of it, 1.275, almost $1.3 billion out of that 1.5 trillion, used to give to large corporation and wealthy individual. Again, we're not discussing that, but we want to stay on in focus on the conversation today. So 90% of the $1.5 trillion went to large corporation and wealthy individual. I must remind you that those corporations have been doing great. When Donald Trump inherited the presidency of the United States, companies were reporting record revenues, record profits. So there was no reason, zilch reason to be given any money, let alone money that had to be borrowed, which means the country doesn't have the money. The Republican Party went and borrowed $1.5 trillion. They gave 90% of that money to large corporations and wealthy individuals, and they kept $300 billion to distribute to people so that they can say, see, we gave you a tax cut. And the reason that they had to do that, my suspicion is they would have given the whole thing to large corporations, but because they have to have a way to say to the American people that, you see, the tax cut was for you. So people would see $40 extra or $60 extra on their paycheck. And if you remember, when the Republicans were passing that tax cut, they were drumming the beat of a huge tax cut for the people. And that's the reason you're seeing those $40 or those $60 on your paycheck, and you feel, oh, at least I get something. watch those videos so that you know that those $40 or those $60 you're receiving, you're not getting anything. Because that money you have to pay back plus. And this is not a speculation. This is not an assumption. The legislation clearly say that you're getting peanut crumbs, but you owe the whole $1.5 trillion. But that's not really where the conversation is going. I want to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Republicans in general, when they're talking about Christianity, when they're talking about being Christian or being Christian conservative or being fiscally conservative, it's just words, label that they love, but they have no reason. Those labels do not belong to Republicans. I don't know if at some point in life they could have used those labels, but today or for the past few decades, it has been very clear, crystal clear, that Republicans love those labels. They use the label, and it's also part of the fault of the Democrat that also keep using those labels to refer to Republican. Also fault of the media that keep using those labels to refer to Republican, when in fact everything points to the fact those labels do not describe Republican. Now, I make fuss about that because it's important. A label supposed to define an individual or a group of individuals, and it's supposed to mean something. But for the Republican, it's just the love of the label, that why they keep using it, but it doesn't represent anything for the Republicans. Now, back to the tax cut. So, Republicans, both houses, overwhelmingly passed a tax cut which unequivocally went to large corporations and wealthy individuals. And that action by the Republican, and of course there was also another action by the Republican in terms of passing a defense spending bill, coupled with that, had already added, according to the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, will add $1.8 trillion to the national debt. Remember the most important part of this conversation. The $1.5 trillion that were borrowed, there was no reason whatsoever to do so. Because you give money to companies or you help companies when the economy is bad, when companies are struggling, and you want to preserve the state of the financial state of the country, it becomes necessary to help large organizations, so that they don't start pushing people out of the door and get the unemployment to go up. That's what happened under Obama. That's why the comparison between Obama borrowing money and adding to the national debt and the Trump administration are night and day. There was reason for Obama administration to do so. There was zero reason for the Trump administration to do so. But again, let's get back to that. So $1.5 trillion were borrowed to give to large corporation and wealthy individual. Those two entities, they already have plenty of money. They don't need any help. But Republicans went ahead anyway, borrowed money that we, the taxpayer, have to pay back, our kids, our grandkids, our great-grandkids, yes, beyond quite a few generations would have to pay for that. Called tax cut. A few weeks ago, a few weeks actually before the midterm election, Mitch McConnell, who is the Senate Majority Leader, gave an interview to Bloomberg in which he said, if we win back the House, we're going to go and cut on Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, welfare program in order to pay for the national debt that had increased. Now, pause just a moment, reflect just a moment, and see what that means. Borrow money to give to those who already have a lot of money. Our kids, our grandkids, our great-grandkids, and beyond will have to work to pay for that debt. But every time that the conversation comes to help those who are at the bottom of the financial ladder, lower class, Republicans always have a fit. In fact, they have a name for helping people who actually are in need of financial help. They call it the welfare system, and it is easy to actually rally a lot of Christians behind the cause of cutting all aspects of benefit that could help those who are least fortunate, financially least fortunate among us. I don't know how you reconcile in your brain that you can easily go and borrow money to give to those who already have plenty, who didn't ask for, who don't need any. But at the same time, you can justify cutting the lifeline of those who actually are in need, in financial need. But you won't have any problem calling yourself a Christian. I don't know where that would fit in the Christian life. You are completely against helping those who need help, financial help, but you seem fully okay to just borrow money and give to not only entities, large corporations and wealthy individuals who don't need any, but you say, go ahead, take that anyway. We'll get other people to pay for it. I don't know how anybody, any sound-minded individual, could possibly justify calling themselves Christian. With that, how do you do that? That's the reason I read Matthew 25 earlier. Because those who are actually in need should be the one that we would say, let's borrow money to help those people. No, why would we? They need help. We should give to those who actually already have plenty. I don't know how that matches the Christian and the Christian conservative lives. Those who actually love to be called Christian are usually those same individuals who are so eager to bash the least fortunate, who are so eager to try to cut them off. But they don't have any problem amounting debt to give to those who already have plenty. But hey, we are Christian, we go to church. Give me a freaking break. I don't know where that Christian life, which Bible that's being used for to be called Christian when you're doing those kind of things. Now, those who go to church, the churches, the mega churches and so on, they are accomplices to this problem, because you have those pastors that condone those very things that are happening because it benefits them, not the Christian, them. Have you seen them putting their hands on Donald Trump and praying for Donald Trump, and at the same time telling you that what Bill Clinton did was so bad, so outrageous that they just could not stand Bill Clinton? Yes, those are the hypocrites who would like to be called Christian. They are not Christian. I have a problem with that, because if you continue to use a word, a label for people who do not deserve to be called that, then you are actually hurting those who are making effort to actually live the lives. So that's why I have a particular problem with that. Don't go anywhere.
If people say your dreams are crazy, if they laugh at what you think you can do, good. Stay that way. Because what non-believers fail to understand is that calling a dream crazy is not an insult. It's a compliment. Don't try to be the fastest runner in your school or the fastest in the world. Be the fastest ever. Don't picture yourself wearing OBJ's jersey. Picture OBJ wearing yours. Don't settle for homecoming queen or linebacker. Do both. Lose 120 pounds and become an Ironman after beating a brain tumor. Don't believe you have to be like anybody to be somebody. If you're born a refugee, don't let it stop you from playing soccer for the national team at age 16. Don't become the best basketball player on the planet. Be bigger than basketball. Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. When they talk about the greatest team in the history of the sport, make sure it's your team. If you have only one hand, don't just watch football. Play it at the highest level. And if you're a girl from Compton, don't just become a tennis player. Become the greatest athlete ever. Yeah, that's more like it. So don't ask if your dreams are crazy. Ask if they're crazy enough.
Let me read for you once again what it is said in Matthew 25. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Now, as I mentioned, I'm not here to preach the gospel, but I want to make the point absolutely clear that calling yourself a Christian doesn't make you a Christian. In fact, if you are a Christian, people should call you a Christian because you live the life of a Christian. Now, as many decades as we can think of, Republicans have always loved the idea of being called Christian conservative, fiscally conservative. But it has been that way for the longest, and yet there has never been any change as far as their actions are concerned. Because we can go as far as 2000, when Bill Clinton left the Oval Office, he left a surplus. Within 1 year of the George W. Bush administration, the surplus was gone. The surplus was wiped out. The Bush administration gave, quote unquote, a tax cut. Sound familiar? Yes, it should, because it wasn't the first time that a tax cut happened. But during the Bush administration, at the very least, there was a surplus that he used the surplus. Sure, he wiped out the surplus and add some more to the national debt. But in the case of the Trump administration, the Republican Party borrowed money in order to actually in order to give to those who already have. Borrowed money in order to give to those who already have. Now, this is not the way that any country, especially a country that is as rich as the United States of America, to leave those who are least fortunate, those at the lower class, those who actually have a need for financial help. The Republican Party in general, in fact, if you remember, when Mitt Romney that is, was bidding for the office, the Oval Office, a conversation that was caught on video, he was even bashing the least fortunate and even said something to the effect that we're not going to count on those 47% because they're not going to vote for me because they're like a handout. Those are the minorities. Of course, that's what they meant. Usually, when you hear Republicans referring to the welfare system, it's a code word because they like to say blacks, minorities in general. For sake of information, FYI, that's not the case. In fact, more whites are on the welfare system than there are blacks. Now, this is not a way to disparage those people because, as I mentioned, a country as rich as the United States of America, yes, we should be open to the idea of helping the least fortunate among us. There is nothing wrong because as much as you hear on Fox and other network that are trying to make the point that those who are least fortunate, those who need help, are people who are simply sitting on their butt and handing their hand, extending their hands and waiting for assistance, like they lazy people. They don't want to work. Now we know, for those who are interested in detail in information, they know those are usually Republicans who either do not know anything at all about the actual predicament of those individuals, or who simply could not care less, and they use that as a way to disparage the people who are actually in need and simply anger the rest of the group of the Republicans, so that they shun Democrat, because they usually try to use that as a wedge issue to say don't vote Democrat, because they're going to take your hard-earned money and give it to those on welfare. They're going to take your hard-earned money and give it to the poor. Ironic, isn't it? There is no problem whatsoever to take your hard-earned money and give it to those who already have. You're too happy to pay for that, right? Unfreaking believable. But this is the way, in general, that Republicans who are in leadership position, whether it's have a microphone like people like Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, Rush Limbaugh, and the likes, they use that platform to misinform, to miseducate, so that they can stoke your anger, your emotion, and say, I'm not going to be working to support people who are on welfare. But what makes it work for them is the fact that they put a boogeyman in front of you. Blacks, Hispanics, yes, people on welfare. That's the boogeyman. They put the straw man, they put in front of you, and they say, this is the person that you're working hard to support on welfare. And that's how they manage to get this thing going. Because as long as you have that straw man in front of you and you're saying, oh, those bum, those lazy people, and what you have in front of you is the picture of a black man, a black woman that's sitting on doing nothing or surfing, as shown one time on Fox, that those people, they're doing absolutely nothing. They're just having the time of their lives, and you're paying for that. Unfreaking unbelievable. This is the Republican Party, the Christian. Not only they lie worse than the devil, because obviously most of what they say about the predicament of those people are untrue, are false, blatantly false. On Fox in particular, sometimes they pick an individual, a John Doe, to come and talk about how great of a life he's having, sitting at home, surfing, and people are taking care of him or her. What do you think that do to individuals who go to work, snow, sleet, sun, heat, and then you sit at home and you're watching that individual telling you that, hey, I don't have to do anything. The government takes care of me. That's purposely done by the likes of Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, etc., just to stoke your anger, your emotion, without giving you any detail as to really what's going on. First, keep in mind that there is no decent individual who can live on welfare forever. I will bring That's the discussion we're having. I will bring detail as to what those people are getting so that you get a sense that it is impossible. So when you hear those individuals at Fox talking nonsense, that's all it is. But the most important thing that I want to bring to the surface today is the following. Is the fact that Republican legislators, the same individual who usually eager to tell you that we're going to cut the benefit for those who actually need those benefits, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, those are the same individual who do not have any problem taking more debt and passing it to us, to our children, to our grandchildren, but at the same time trying to cut our benefit. And I said that before, and I'll say it to you again today. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid are not handout. You know why they're not handout? It's because we pay towards them. Look at your pay stub, Look, your pay stub, you see a line item for Medicare, a line item for Social Security. You pay towards those things. So when you hear Republicans coming and make you feel as if you're getting a handout for getting Social Security check, for getting Medicare, they just doing what they have been doing best. Take from you and give to those who already have. Now trying to make you feel bad as if you're getting a handout. It is mind-boggling that the individual that you elected to improve your lives are the very individuals that are actually making it worse. Side note, that's why I was flabbergasted to hear that someone like Devin Nunes got reelected. I say, what kind of people actually go to the poll and vote that individual back in office? So I know the country has a serious problem. And the problem is not a Democrat or Republican problem. The problem is knowledge and ignorance. I say that and I keep saying it and I will continue to say it. The big divide in the United States of America is between those who seek knowledge and wisdom and those who choose to stay and live in ignorance. That is what caused the big divide in the country. And that's why issues like this have lingered for a very long time, because it has never been about those issues. It has been between those who seek knowledge and wisdom and those who choose to stay and live in ignorance. Because when you go and look for knowledge and you get to understand those issues, social, political issues, then you do not react or act the same way. Today, this is the fight, and that is the very purpose of this program, the Fourth Branch. That's the very purpose of this program. We are not politically affiliated. We are neither Democrat or Republican. The very goal that we have is to achieve a more perfect union. But we know that cannot happen unless you are educated, unless you become knowledgeable of those issues, whether it's social or political. You become knowledgeable, not getting sound bite from people who actually have an axe to grind, or from people who actually benefit of keeping you ignorant. Yes, those people like Fox, Rush, Limbaugh, and a bunch of others, they have every reason to keep their audience ignorant. And they have made a lot of effort to keep it that way. Because if you become knowledgeable, if you, a viewer or a listener of any of those individuals, once you become knowledgeable, you no longer want to listen to them because you know they're just spewing trash, lies. So they lose audience. And guess what happened? With losing audiences, they lose advertising money. And with losing advertising money, they would soon lose their job. So keeping you ignorant, keeping you in the dark, keeping you ill-informed is money in their pockets. So they have reason to keep you that way. Fox Network has been doing that job for decades now. And it's fine by them, not because they don't know. You see how long everyone outside Fox knows that Fox's audience lives in a very different world. Why do you think Fox has not changed? They still call themselves Fox News, and they still continue to lie, to misinform, to misguide you. Why do you think they do that? Any idea? No matter how much backlash that they get, even now people from inside Fox start revolting against this kind of behavior. Why do you think they keep it? Think about that. It's because it brings money. Keeping you misinformed, keeping you ill-educated, keeping you ignorant is actually good for Fox. That's why they want to keep you that way. So this topic we're talking about is the welfare topic. But the tax cut and the benefit cuts, those are the two items that Mitch McConnell, Senate Majority Leader, mentioned in order to take care of the national debt. His proposition is to do benefits cut, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, welfare program. That's his solution. So we will come back, and because this is an ongoing discussion, we will come back to continue that conversation, because you need to understand fully when you hear those conversations from politicians, you don't get the full picture. All you get is the soundbite and the portion that they want to tell you about so that they can keep you engaged, either angry at the other party, the other side. That's always the case. Point finger to the other side so that you don't see that what they're doing is actually detrimental to the country and hurtful to you. We'll be right back. We will continue this conversation tomorrow at the same time. We will take from the last time we were talking about the welfare system, its origin and so on. And that conversation will continue, but we will also keep that conversation in parallel with the tax cut and the benefit cuts that Mitch McConnell proposed. And not only to give you the understanding that when you hear a politician talk, you have to be able to read between the lines. In order to do that, you have to be informed of the issues that the politicians are talking about and how it impacts you, how it impacts your life, how it impacts the life of your children, your grandchildren, and so on. So tomorrow at the same time, we will continue that conversation and we will bring you more material to give you better understanding of not only the welfare system, but also of the benefit cards that Mitch McConnell proposed as part of the solution to the national debt. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for spending the time with me today. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. The Fourth Branch podcast is brought to you in collaboration with the People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the Fourth Branch, live from New York. Good day.